So what are some of the key mistakes people make when they're starting their own teaching business?
Yeah, well, there are quite a few, but it's just normal because there's a lot to take in. The first thing I see people do often is actually leaving too much availability in their calendar.
24 hours a day.
24 hours a day, and this happens because when you set up your business the way that we teach, you do tend to get quite a lot of interest early on, and so people quite naturally, understandably, don't want to turn anybody away. And so I've seen people set their calendar availability for delivering lessons to basically 24 hours a day. And so what you'll do is you'll set it up and you set it live, and you'll be super excited about getting your first students through the door. And then you'll wake up one morning and see, right, okay, now I've got a lesson at 3 a.m. tomorrow morning with someone from the other side of the world. And then before you know it, you're teaching at all times of the day, and it's just not good for anybody. It's not good for you.
You're not going to teach your best lesson.
You're not going to be on your game at the top of your game at 3 in the morning. And so really what you need to do is make sure that you're teaching within your, the parameters of what a healthy lifestyle means for you.
We wrote the word down, niche. What did you mean by that?
So niche refers to the students that you want to teach, the kind of teaching that you do specifically. Now, one of the, if you go onto any tutoring website, if you look at any teacher that's advertising their lessons, generally speaking, every advert or every teacher profile reads in the same way. They say things like, I teach students of all ages and all abilities, I tailor my lessons to your needs. And what they're doing is basically saying, I teach everybody, all welcome.
Have you been into those restaurants which have a kind of 200-page menu of everything you could possibly think of?
Yeah, so whether you want Chinese or Italian, whatever, we've got it.
It's never great, is it?
It's never great. You're much better off. It's a great analogy, really. You're much better off saying, you know what, I fancy Thai tonight. And so you go to the place that does Thai really well, not the Chinese place that also dabbles in Thai. It's exactly the same with teaching. So what happens when you've got a student who's looking for a teacher, and they see that you teach everybody, all ages, and you tailor by appealing to everybody, by trying to appeal to everybody, you end up actually appealing to nobody directly. And so what's much better is to define a very specific niche for your teaching. For example, I help medical students pass their written exams. I help business professionals deliver confident presentations. I help people in tour guides in Japan learn English for whatever it may be. By being specific, by defining a niche for your lessons, it allows you to get much more traction in your business much faster.
And that might be niche. Your niche, it could be based on your own experience as well.
It should be. It absolutely should be. This is what we teach on CEOs as well. Everybody has got unique experiences, unique skills, unique things about them that other people will want when they learn languages from you. It's not always obvious to people. We have to do a lot of work to help people tease it out during the program. But the biggest mistake of all is not defining that niche, because like I said before, you end up appealing to nobody.
You mentioned tutor platforms before that. Is that a good place to start?
Yeah, so tutor platforms, there's more and more of these places, and they're the marketplaces for students and teachers. So you register on a place like LanguageTalk, for example, where you put a video up, and you'll have your you'll write about you as a teacher, and they are fantastic. They're great places to get started. Many trainees do start there by working on teacher platforms, and it's so convenient that what happens is that teachers end up sticking to those tutor platforms, and the issue there is that it's not really your business. You're actually just growing the teaching platform itself. And so by all means start on tutoring platforms, but what's also really important, this is one of the things that we spend a lot of time on CEOT, is actually establishing your own business at the same time. And it's very straightforward to do, but having your own presence, your own website, your own email where people can contact you, it just allows you to build up your own student base, and you're also much more in control as well. So the mistake there is staying teaching on tutor platforms for too long.
Don't limit yourself to that, yeah. Now, when I started teaching a long time ago, it was after my initial teacher training course. I think you did some teaching before your initial training course?
Well, I taught music, actually. So
okay.
I used to teach music because I did a music degree, and when I was in my my mid-20s, I taught music for a few years. It was like, one-to-one guitar lessons actually in schools. So I had some experience, and I'd done a lot of language exchanges as well, on the language front, but I'd never actually kind of taught properly.
Now, I can't imagine having gone into a classroom or teaching online without that training, but lots of people do. Is that a good idea?
Well, I think everyone is different, and I think one of the things that we've seen a lot more of in recent years as the online world has become bigger is that people you do tend to get a lot of unqualified teachers and experienced teachers, and often tutor platforms will kind of take anybody to teach, and from the student's perspective, they don't necessarily know the difference. But actually being trained to teach properly is such an important thing, because apart from anything, if you're going to be doing this for hours a day, you want to know what you're doing. You want to have the professional pride of knowing that you're teaching in the right way, that you're actually helping your students, you're giving them value for money. And if it's something that you want to develop over time as well, you want that foundation there, because if you're properly trained, you'll have happier students, that will get you more students.
And you feel much more confident as well.
You just feel better about yourself. I think it's training as a teacher doesn't really take that long actually, but it does give you the foundation to go on and do great things in your own business and your own life.
You wrote working solo. What was that?
Working solo. The online world is great because you can do stuff from your living room. So we have lots of people who build their own teaching practices, their own tutoring practices from their living room, literally, or from an Airbnb somewhere in Vietnam or wherever they. So it's super flexible, but it's easy to find yourself in a bit of a bubble. And I've been guilty of this myself. I've been working hard on story learning at different points, and kind of woke up one morning thinking, actually quite isolated here, but there's so much to learn from other people. So it's a big mistake to continue to work solo, and instead what you really need to do is get in touch with other teachers. There's lots of great communities out there. Find people who are doing similar things to you, create that peer group, because not only will you learn a lot, but you'll also find new friendships from those people, and you'll end up having a great peer group at the same time.
Don't stay solo. What about prices? We talk a lot about confidence, and one of those issues with confidence is about not wanting to charge too much and not wanting to put students off.
Yeah, well, for new teachers in particular, one of the biggest fears that they have, and I had exactly this fear myself, was I'm nervous to charge my students too much because I'm not worth it. I'm a new teacher and I'm not trained, and it's very, very common to feel nervous about that. And indeed, one of the things that I recommend new teachers to do is not to charge too much at first. Actually, it's a good idea to get some teaching hours under your belt at a fairly low rate, because it allows you to develop confidence without any kind of lingering feelings of, oh, am I not giving value for money? However, as time goes by, you will encounter this very strange phenomenon whereby students who are willing to pay more actually end up learning more. And the reason is that, generally speaking, when students invest more in a more expensive teacher, they take it more seriously themselves. If you're getting lessons for $5-10 an hour, you don't take it that seriously, really. This does depend on the part of the world you are in. Obviously, a student in Bangladesh has a different spending power to someone in Germany, absolutely. But generally speaking, students, the more that they pay, the more seriously they take it. And many students, in fact, especially if they're professionals or they're business people or doctors or lawyers or whatever, they actually won't take you seriously if you're only charging, $15-20 an hour. They expect to pay $50 or upwards an hour for the professional service of learning a language. And so it's a very common mistake that new teachers make, to not raise their prices out of fear and out of concern about not being worth it. Whereas instead, as we teach to do in CEOT, is to raise your prices but in line with the value that you can deliver. So as you become a more confident teacher, as you can deliver more value to your students, it's very important to begin to raise your prices gradually.
And of course, you need to find students first, you need to advertise. Presumably social media is the best place to do this.
Yeah, well, I have slightly different feelings about that. I mean,
thought you might.
The thing about social media is it's easy. and everyone has it on. We all have Instagram and TikTok and Facebook on our phones. And the problem with things that are very low barrier to entry, that everybody is doing, means that you are just another fish in a very, very big ocean. And it's very difficult to stand out. Not only that, students who are on social media, generally speaking, they're just chilling out. They're just kind of killing time. They're bored at home. They are not in the mode of thinking, I want to find a teacher here. Where can I find it? If you want to find a teacher, you go to Google. You go and search on Google. You go to your local newspaper or whatever it is. Generally, people are not in teacher hunting mode when they're on social media. And then when you consider just how much noise there is, it is.
How can you break through?
It's not that I'm anti-social media, but I'm just from the perspective of how do you use your time wisely, then I would recommend to virtually nobody, unless you're already very skilled on social media, you know what you're doing, I would recommend to stay well away from it, because you're not going to get a good return for the time that you spend on it.
Great. Okay, so some key things to avoid there when starting your own business.